You know, birthdays used to mean everything to me. When I was little, I'd circle the date on every calendar in the house. Bright pink marker, hearts all around it. I used to imagine balloons, laughter, maybe even just a family dinner where everyone smiled. But somewhere along the way, those circles became meaningless because every year, without fail, my family forgot. No calls, no messages, no cake, just silence. And silence, when it's repeated year after year, becomes its own kind of cruelty. I used to tell myself they were busy, that maybe Mum just had too much on her mind, or Dad was traveling again, or my brother had school projects. But by the 5th birthday in a row, I knew. They remembered. They just didn't care. When I was 10, I woke up early on my birthday, wearing my favorite blue dress. The one Grandma said made me look like a spring morning. I waited in the kitchen, smiling at the empty table, expecting someone to come in and say, "Happy birthday, sweetheart." Instead, I heard laughter from the living room. My parents and my brother were already having breakfast. Pancakes, strawberries, syrup. They hadn't even noticed I was awake. When I finally walked in, Mom just said, "Oh, you're up. Grab a plate." Not even a glance at me. Not even a word. That was the day I realized something. You can live under the same roof and still be invisible. Year after year, it was the same. No cake, no candle, no warmth. I used to sit by the window, watching the neighbor's house across the street. Their daughter, Mia, had birthdays that looked like fairy tales. Pink balloons, laughter echoing through the night, everyone smiling. And me? I'd just watch from behind the curtain, whispering, "Happy birthday, Sophia," to myself. That became my tradition. I'd bake myself a cupcake, stick one candle in it, and sing quietly, just to prove to myself that I existed. It's funny how kids can find comfort in make-believe. I used to imagine that one day, when I grew up, they'd realize how much I loved them, how much I wanted to be seen. I thought maybe they'd surprise me. Maybe one day there'd be a cake waiting, with my name written in pink frosting, but that day never came. Instead, every birthday became a reminder of what I wasn't. Not the favorite, not the chosen one, just the leftover love. I used to write letters to myself. "Dear Sophia, one day you'll matter. One day someone will remember." I'd fold those notes and hide them under my pillow. But over time, even hope began to feel heavy. So I stopped writing. I stopped waiting. And on my 17th birthday, I stopped caring. That year, they threw a big party for my brother, Ethan. It was his college acceptance celebration. Banners, balloons, music, champagne. And guess what day they picked? My birthday. Everyone showed up with gifts for him. My mom kept saying, "Isn't this the best day for a celebration?" And all I could think was, "It's supposed to be mine." I remember standing in the corner of the living room, holding a paper cup of soda, trying not to cry. No one even looked my way. That was the night I decided I'd never celebrate another birthday with them again. Not until they learned what forgetting someone really costs. You see, when your own family teaches you how to disappear, you learn fast. I learned to make my own dinners, to patch my own clothes, to be my own comfort. I learned that family isn't just blood. It's whoever remembers you when no one else does. And for a long time, the only person who remembered me was me. That's how it all began. 10 forgotten birthdays, one after another. 10 lessons in loneliness. But what I didn't know back then was this. Every time they ignored me, I was quietly learning something powerful. How to live without their approval, how to rise without their applause, and how to make sure that one day, when they finally remembered me, they'd wish they hadn't. I think everyone has that one moment. The one where something inside you quietly breaks. For me, it happened on my 18th birthday. I remember waking up that morning telling myself, "It's just another day, Sophia. Don't expect anything. You're fine. But deep down, I still hoped. I still wanted someone to care. Just one message, one call, something. I checked my phone. Nothing. No text from Mom. No call from Dad. Not even a casual hey from my brother. The silence of that morning felt heavier than usual, maybe because I was officially an adult now, and even that didn't seem to matter to anyone. I sat there on the edge of my bed, staring at the empty inbox on my phone screen, and I felt something small inside me crumble. That evening, I cooked myself dinner, pasta, garlic, and the leftover sauce from the night before. I set the table for one, lit a single candle, and whispered happy birthday under my breath. The flame flickered like it was mocking me, and then I heard laughter outside. Through the window, I saw my family getting into the car, dressed nicely, laughing together. They were going out to dinner, without me, on my birthday. I didn't even ask where they were going. I just stood there, frozen, as the car pulled away. That was when something inside me changed. For the first time in my life, I didn't cry. I didn't run to my room or write another letter to myself. I just sat there, quietly, in that small kitchen with my untouched food, and made a promise. I whispered it softly into the candle flame. One day, you'll remember me, not because I begged for it, but because you'll wish you hadn't forgotten me. I didn't know how or when, but I knew I couldn't keep being the invisible one. I wanted a life where I mattered, even if that meant walking away from everyone who didn't see me. So the next morning, I packed a small bag. I didn't tell anyone. I just left. No note, no explanations, just silence. The same kind they'd given me for years. I moved into a small apartment 2 towns away. It was tiny. Cracked paint, second-hand furniture, and a view of an alleyway instead of a garden. But for the first time in my life, it was mine. Those first few months were hard. I worked at a diner, scrubbing tables, and running orders for people who barely looked at me. But I didn't mind. At least the silence was my own. No judgment, no cold stares, no pretending to be fine. At night, when I came home exhausted, I'd look out my window and imagine my family sitting around the dinner table, probably not even realizing I was gone. And somehow, that stopped hurting after a while. Pain becomes background noise when you've lived with it long enough. You stop waiting for apologies. You stop hoping someone will change, and you start changing yourself instead. I began reading business blogs during my breaks at work, learning design, sketching ideas. I didn't have much, but I had time, and I poured all of it into something that was finally mine, my dream. It was the beginning of a different kind of birthday, a rebirth. Every forgotten birthday had built a fire inside me, and I was finally learning to let it burn for something better. That's when I made another promise to myself. Not of revenge, but of transformation. One day they'd see me, and they wouldn't recognize the girl they used to forget. That was the real start of everything that came after. The rise, the silence, the reckoning. The day they finally remembered my birthday would be the day they'd regret it. The first year away from home was brutal, not because I missed them, but because I finally had to face what being alone really meant. There were nights when I'd come home from the diner with my hands raw from scrubbing dishes, smelling like grease and coffee, and I'd sit on the cold floor of my apartment just to feel something solid beneath me. I had a mattress, one chair, and a second-hand laptop that barely worked. That was it, but I had freedom, and that was worth everything. I remember counting every coin before paying rent, calculating if I could afford bread and eggs in the same week. Most times I couldn't. Dinner was instant noodles, with a little ketchup when I wanted to feel fancy. There were no calls from home, no messages asking where I was. I didn't expect any. They'd probably decided that I was dramatic or ungrateful. Maybe they thought I'd come crawling back, eventually. But I didn't. I couldn't. There's a kind of power that comes from being forgotten, the power to rewrite yourself from scratch. Started sketching again. I used to love drawing when I was a kid, but back then, my parents told me it was a waste of time. Now it became my lifeline. I'd sketch on napkins, cardboard, even receipts. People at the diner started noticing. One of the regulars, an older woman named Mrs. Carter, once said, "You've got something special, honey. You just don't know it yet." She was the first person who'd said that to me. The first person who saw me in years. I didn't realize it then, but that small moment planted a seed in my heart. The belief that maybe I could turn what I loved into something real. I saved every tip from the diner, every extra shift, until I could afford a cheap online course in graphic design. I studied at night, my eyes burning from the screen, my hands trembling from exhaustion. But I didn't stop. There were setbacks, of course. My first designs were terrible. I applied for freelance gigs and got rejected by everyone. Sometimes people didn't even reply. But the thing about rejection is, it starts to sound like background noise after a while, and I had heard silence my whole life. So this was nothing new. A year passed, then two. The loneliness dulled, replaced by a quiet determination. My designs got better. I got small jobs online. A logo here, a brochure there. Slowly, I started building something that felt like mine. One night, while walking home from the diner, I saw a family celebrating outside a restaurant. The parents were laughing, the kids were throwing confetti, the mom holding a cake with glowing candles. I stopped and watched from across the street. For a second, the ache returned, sharp and familiar. I felt like that little girl again, standing behind the curtain, watching someone else's happiness. But then I smiled, because this time, I didn't need to be part of it. I had my own quiet version of peace. That night, I went home, baked a small cake in my toaster oven, and wrote something in my journal. You don't need their candles to shine. It wasn't about proving them wrong anymore. It was about proving myself right. That was the year my small design page started gaining traction online. People began to notice my work. A few of my designs went mildly viral. Nothing huge, but enough to make me realize that maybe I was meant for more. I started getting emails from small businesses wanting to collaborate. One order became 2, then 10, then 50. I barely slept. I'd work at the diner all day, design all night. Every time I looked at my growing savings, I thought of my parents' words echoing in my head. You'll never make anything of yourself. And I'd whisper to the empty room, watch me. For years they ignored my birthdays, but soon they'd remember me for something they couldn't ignore. Success. It wasn't about revenge. Not yet. It was about survival, but revenge. Revenge was quietly learning my name, and it was only a matter of time before it arrived at their doorstep. Success doesn't happen overnight, but sometimes, when it finally arrives, it feels like it does. For me, it began with a single post. I had designed a minimalist logo for a small online bakery run by a young couple. They were kind, respectful, the opposite of what I was used to. When they posted my design on social media, it went viral. People loved it. The comments flooded in. Who made this? The designer has real talent. For the first time, people weren't ignoring me. They were seeing me. The couple gave me credit publicly, and within a week, I had hundreds of messages from small businesses asking for designs. I worked non-stop, days, nights, weekends. The exhaustion felt different this time. It wasn't emptiness, it was purpose. By the end of that year, I had enough clients to quit the diner. I rented a slightly better apartment with white walls, a small balcony, and sunlight that actually touched the floor in the mornings. I started a business officially, Lunar Studio, named after the moon, because even in darkness, it glows. I didn't tell anyone in my family. Not because I wanted to hide, but because, honestly, they weren't part of my story anymore. Still, there were nights when the past crept in. The quiet ones, when the city slept. And I'd catch myself wondering if they ever thought of me. Did Mom ever feel guilty? Did Dad ever notice the empty chair at the table? Did Ethan ever ask where his sister went? I doubted it, but that doubt didn't hurt the way it used to. It just reminded me why I started. Years passed like that. Slow, steady, and deliberate. Luna Studio grew faster than I ever imagined. I began hiring people, traveling for work, even collaborating with international brands. The day I opened my own office, I stood in front of the glass doors, with my name etched in silver on the wall. Sophia L. Carter, founder and creative director, Carter. Not my father's name, my mother's maiden name, because I wanted nothing to tie me to the people who once forgot me. Funny thing is, success doesn't just change your bank balance, it changes your silence. It makes people who once ignored you start whispering your name again. I started getting calls from unknown numbers. I didn't answer most of them. Then one day, an email appeared in my inbox. It was from my brother Ethan. He wrote, "Hey Soph, how have you been? Mom and Dad talk about you sometimes. They said they'd love to see you." I stared at that message for a long time. They talk about me sometimes. After 10 years of silence, I didn't reply. But I didn't delete it either. Something inside me, something cold and patient, told me to wait, because people who ignore you when you're small will always try to claim you when you shine. And I had a feeling they weren't done with me yet. Then, 3 weeks later, another message came. This time from Mom. "Sophia, honey, it's been too long. We're so proud of what you've done. We'd love to have you over soon. By the way, your birthday's coming up. We thought we could celebrate it together, finally." I remember reading those words, and I actually laughed. They wanted to celebrate my birthday. After 10 years of pretending it didn't exist. The same people who once made me feel invisible now wanted to be part of my story again. It almost felt like a test, like life itself was asking, "Sophia, are you still that girl waiting by the window? Or are you someone new?" I didn't answer right away, but deep down, I knew this wasn't going to be a reunion. It was going to be reckoning, because while they'd been forgetting me, I'd been learning how to remember myself. And that kind of strength doesn't fade. So when I finally replied, I kept it simple. "Sure, let's celebrate. Tell me when." And as I pressed send, a calm smile spread across my face. They thought they were planning a family dinner, but what they didn't know was, I was planning my finale. The message came on a quiet Wednesday morning. Mom wrote, "Dinner at the family restaurant next Friday at 7. Everyone will be there. We've booked the private room. Dress nicely, sweetheart. It's going to be special." Special. That word made me pause. For years, my birthdays had been forgotten, ignored, erased. Now suddenly they were special. I almost deleted the message, but something inside me, calm, older, wiser, whispered, "No, go." Because sometimes the most powerful revenge isn't shouting back. It's showing up and letting the truth speak for itself. So I agreed, and for the first time in a decade, I decided to face them. The week leading up to that dinner was strange. I wasn't nervous exactly, just curious. Curious to see their faces, their eyes, their version of love. The one that only appeared when it was convenient. I went shopping for something to wear, not to impress them, but to remind myself who I'd become. I chose a white silk blouse and a long beige skirt, paired with the silver necklace Mrs. Carter had given me before she passed away. The woman who had believed in me when no one else did. When I looked at myself in the mirror that day, I saw someone I barely recognized. The girl who once hid behind curtains was gone. The woman standing there looked steady, collected, and unbothered. Friday came faster than I expected. The restaurant was beautiful. Dim lights, chandeliers, the faint sound of jazz playing in the background. I had been there before, years ago, when I used to watch other families celebrate, while mine ignored me. It was poetic, really. Coming back here, as I walked through the doors, I saw them, Mom, Dad, and Ethan, all sitting at the round table near the center of the private room. For a moment, they looked older, not just in years but in spirit. My father's once dark hair was streaked with grey. Mom's smile looked tighter than I remembered. Ethan, well, he looked the same. Confident, smug, maybe a little too comfortable. When they saw me, Mom stood up quickly, her face lighting up. Sophia, look at you. You look so beautiful. Her arms opened wide. But her eyes, they didn't match the warmth in her voice. They flickered with calculation. Dad gave a polite nod, the kind you give to a stranger. Ethan just smirked. Well, look who finally made it to dinner. That was the moment I knew. This wasn't a reunion. It was theater. I smiled anyway. It's good to see you two, because two can play that game. The table was set beautifully. Crystal glasses, folded napkins, and right in the center, a cake, pink frosting. My name written neatly on top. Happy birthday, Sophia. For a second, I just stared at it. 10 years ago, I would have cried. But now, I only felt detached. Like I was watching a play. I'd already read the ending too. Mom clapped her hands together. Isn't this nice? We thought it was time to make things right. We've missed you so much. I tilted my head slightly. Really? That's interesting. I don't remember hearing from anyone in, about 10 years. She forced a laugh. Oh, honey, life just got so busy. You know how it is. Ethan leaned forward. Yeah, but now you're like rich, right? We saw your company online. Luna Studio. That's you, isn't it? There it was. The real reason I was sitting here. They didn't miss me. They missed what they could gain from me. I smiled faintly. Yes, that's me. He whistled low. Wow, impressive. Guess you finally made something of yourself. Guess I did, I said softly, and I meant every word. The waiter came, took our orders, and for a while, we talked. Well, they talked. About business, money, investments. Not one real question about me, my life, my happiness. Mum even said, you know, honey, if you ever want to invest in your brother's company, I'm sure it would mean so much to the family. Dad nodded approvingly. Family should help family after all. I took a slow sip of water and smiled politely. You're right, family should. Inside, I felt nothing but calm, because I had spent years preparing for this. Not just financially, but emotionally. The girl they used to belittle was gone. The woman sitting across from them was in control now. Of herself, her success, her peace, and yet I could feel something building, something sharp and electric, hidden behind all the fake smiles and polite laughter. I didn't know exactly how the night would end, but I could feel it. The moment I'd waited for was coming, and it was going to be the most unforgettable birthday they'd ever attend. The waiter brought out the food, steaming plates of roasted chicken, pasta and red wine that shimmered under the soft lights. Everything looked perfect. Too perfect. They were putting on a show. A family dinner for a daughter they had forgotten existed. But what they didn't realize was that I wasn't the same girl who used to crave their approval. I was here for closure, not their affection. Ethan poured himself a glass of wine and leaned back, his smirk growing wider with every sip. So, Sophia, he started, tell us how it feels to go from crying over forgotten birthdays to owning your own company. Quite the glow up, huh? His tone wasn't admiration. It was mockery wrapped in charm. Mom giggled, tapping his arm lightly. Ethan, don't tease your sister. Then she turned to me, voice dripping with fake warmth. But really, dear, how did you manage? You were always the sensitive one. I looked at her. at the woman who once forgot my 16th birthday while planning Ethan's engagement party. I learned that sometimes, I said slowly. Being sensitive just means you feel the truth deeper than others. Her smile faltered for a second. Well, she said quickly, we're just glad you've finally done something worthwhile. Your father and I were worried you'd end up, struggling. Dad didn't even look up from his plate. Success doesn't change where you came from, he muttered, cutting into his steak. His words hit like a dull knife, not sharp enough to hurt anymore, but just enough to remind me how often they'd said things like that. I put my fork down. You're right, I said softly. Success doesn't change where I came from. But it does make me realize I never want to go back there. Ethan laughed out loud. Oh, come on, don't be dramatic. We're family. Are we? I asked quietly, because it didn't feel like it every year I spent my birthday alone, watching the three of you post dinner photos without me. The table went silent. Only the sound of clinking glasses and soft jazz filled the air. Mom's lips tightened. That's in the past, Sophia. Let's not ruin the evening over old wounds. I smiled thinly. Old wounds only stay open when no one ever apologizes. Ethan scoffed. You think the world owes you an apology because you were sad once. You're rich now, aren't you? Let it go. He lifted his glass in a mock toast to our little emotional success story. And then, it happened. He laughed. Loud, careless, cruel. The same laugh I remembered from that birthday 10 years ago, when they brought out a cake for him instead of me. Mom tried to hush him, but she was laughing too. Even Dad's lips curled in a smirk. Something inside me went still. Cold, then clear. I didn't say a word. I just looked at them, each face frozen in its own version of superiority, and realized this was never about family, or love, or forgiveness. This was about power, and I had it now. When the waiter came back with dessert, the pink cake, Mom clasped her hands dramatically. Everyone, let's sing for Sophia. They started singing Happy Birthday, all smiles and fake cheer, their voices echoing against the polished walls. I sat quietly, watching the candles flicker, and when the song ended, I blew them out, but I didn't make a wish. I had already granted it myself, by surviving them. Ethan leaned forward. So, Sophia, what did you wish for? I met his gaze. For honesty, he frowned. What's that supposed to mean? I smiled. You'll see. After the cake was served, I placed my fork down and reached for my purse. I pulled out a small white envelope and set it on the table. I actually brought something for you, I said quietly. Mom's eyes lit up, assuming it was a gift. Oh, sweetheart, you didn't have to. It's not a gift, I interrupted. It's an invitation. Dad raised an eyebrow. An invitation. Yes, I said calmly, to my new home. I slid the envelope toward them. I thought it was time you all saw what a forgotten daughter can build when no one believes in her. Ethan laughed. You're kidding, right? You want us to come to your place? I met his gaze evenly. Oh, not just my place. My property. The estate you used to drive by and call the fancy hill house. I own it now. Their laughter stopped. For the first time all evening, silence had weight. Mom's face stiffened. That's impossible. I smiled faintly. You taught me, Mom. Never expect too much from me. So I decided to surprise you. I stood, pushing my chair back. Dinner was lovely. Thank you for remembering me this year. As I turned to leave, I looked over my shoulder. And just so you know, I said softly, I didn't come here for your approval. I came here to say goodbye to the version of me that still needed you. Outside, the night air was cold and crisp. I could still hear faint laughter from the private room. But it didn't touch me anymore. I walked away, heels clicking softly against the pavement, feeling lighter than I had in years. For the first time, my birthday belonged to me. A week passed after that dinner. I thought that would be the end of it. That they'd laugh about me behind closed doors and move on with their self-absorbed lives. But I should have known better. People who ignore you until they see your success don't give up easily. They circle back, not because they care, but because they want a piece of the life they never helped build. It was a quiet Sunday morning. The sun was soft against the tall windows of my study. I was sipping coffee, scrolling through some design proposals for a new project, when my phone started buzzing. 3 missed calls, then 4, then a text from Mom. "We're outside." Surprise! I froze. For a second, I thought maybe I'd read it wrong. But then, the gate camera notification flashed on my phone. And there they were. Mom in her designer coat, Dad in his pressed jacket, Ethan with that same smug grin, standing at the iron gates of my estate, the same ones that used to belong to the family, who once threw charity galas. While ignoring me at the table, I sighed, walked to the security panel, and pressed the intercom. "Can I help you?" Mom's voice came through, cheerful, almost forced. "Oh, sweetheart, we were just in the area and thought we'd stop by. Your father's dying to see the house." Lies. They were never just in the area. Still, I pressed the button and said calmly, "The gates are open. Come in." If they wanted to see what I'd built, fine, let them. But they wouldn't find the weak Sophia they used to laugh at. They drove up the long gravel path, their car crunching against the stones, the house slowly coming into view. Tall glass windows, sprawling gardens, the kind of modern architecture that whispered power in every line. When they stepped out, Mom gasped audibly. "Oh my goodness," she breathed. "Sophia, this place, it's breathtaking." Ethan whistled, spinning in a slow circle. "Wow, so this is where the forgotten sister ended up, huh?" He said it with a smile, but his eyes, they held something else, envy. Dad didn't say much. He just looked around, scanning everything like he was inspecting an investment. I greeted them politely at the door. "Welcome," I said with a calm smile. "You wanted to see my home. Here it is." Mom reached out and hugged me, the scent of her expensive perfume filling the air. "We're just so proud of you, sweetheart." I almost laughed. "Proud? Now?" Inside, I led them through the grand foyer. The marble floors gleamed under the chandelier. My company's art pieces, my designs, lined the walls. Ethan trailed behind me, running his hand along a sculpture. "So, how much did this place cost?" I smiled faintly. "Enough to make you regret ignoring my birthday for 10 years. He laughed, pretending it was a joke, but his eyes hardened. Mom turned to me, her tone suddenly sweet and careful. "Darling, you must be so busy with work. Do you have anyone to help you manage everything? You know, your father and brother are so experienced with finances." There it was. The real reason they'd come. I looked at her, expression still soft. "I have a full team, Mom. Accountants, lawyers, managers. I don't need family help for that." Her smile faltered. Of course. Just offering. We want to be part of your life again. That's all." I tilted my head slightly. Part of my life, or part of my success. The silence that followed said everything. After showing them around, we ended up on the back terrace, overlooking the lake. The water shimmered gold in the sunlight, quiet and endless. "This view," Mom whispered. "It's peaceful." "It is," I said softly. "That's why I bought this place. It used to belong to Mrs. Carter, the woman who helped me when I had nowhere to go." Dad frowned. "You mean that old woman who used to live near the edge of town?" "Yes," I said simply. "She gave me my first job, my first advice, and when she passed, she left me a small piece of land. Said I'd know what to do with it." I turned to face them, meeting their stunned expressions. "I built everything you see on that foundation. Love, respect, and hard work. Things I never got from this family." Mom's voice trembled slightly. "Sophia, don't say that. We forgot me." I interrupted. "For years, and now you're here because you see what I've become. Ethan's tone turned defensive. That's not true. We just missed the chance to believe in me. I finished. It's okay. You don't have to rewrite the past. I've already made peace with it. They stood there, awkward and silent, the sound of birds filling the space between us. Finally, Dad cleared his throat. Well, he said, forcing a smile, maybe now we can move forward as a family. You've done well for yourself, Sophia. Perhaps we can collaborate. I stopped him with a raised hand. No, that's not what this is. I didn't bring you here to make amends or start over. Their faces shifted. Confusion, then realization. I brought you here, I said quietly, so you could see what happens when the girl you ignored learns she never needed you. Ethan's mouth opened, but no words came out. Mom's eyes glistened. Sophia, please don't say that. I smiled, but there was no anger in it. Just finality. I'm not saying it to hurt you. I'm saying it to free myself. As I walked them back to the door, Mom reached for my hand. Can we at least come by again sometime? I hesitated, then gently pulled away. Maybe, I said softly, but not as the family who forgot me, only as the people who finally saw me. They didn't know how to respond. And honestly, I didn't need them to, because for the first time in my life, I felt something I'd never felt with them. Peace. That night, after they left, I stood on my balcony overlooking the lake. The lights of their car disappeared down the road, swallowed by the dark. The air was cool. The world was quiet, and for the first time in years, I smiled on my birthday without faking it. 2 months passed after that awkward visit. They hadn't called again, not a text, not a, how are you? Nothing, and I was fine with that. I had my company, my peace, and the kind of quiet life I'd always dreamed of. But peace doesn't last long when people like my family are involved. They only show up when they want something. It started one morning when my assistant, Clara, came rushing into my office, holding her tablet. Sophia, you might want to see this, she said carefully. On the screen was a glossy magazine article with the headline, From Forgotten Daughter to Business Icon. How Sophia Bennett rose to fame with family support. My chest tightened. I scrolled down and there it was. Pictures of my family. Mom smiling tearfully beside my photo. Ethan giving an interview. Dad quoted as saying, "We always knew she had potential. We supported her every step. Every step." My hands shook slightly, but not from sadness this time. From disbelief. They were using my story, the same pain they caused, to make themselves look like heroes. That afternoon, I received an email from a talk show producer. They wanted me and my family to appear together. To celebrate your inspiring family journey. I almost laughed out loud. Inspiring? If only they knew the truth behind those family dinners. Clara looked at me nervously. Should I decline the invite? But I shook my head. No, accept it. Her eyes widened. Are you sure? I nodded. Yes. It's time they learn what a real story sounds like. The studio was bright, filled with cameras, makeup artists, and that artificial smell of hairspray and nerves. Mum waved from across the room, her smile wide, but her eyes calculating. Ethan looked smug in his tailored suit. Dad gave me a curt nod, pretending everything was normal. We sat side by side on the couch as the host began the introduction. Tonight, we're joined by the Bennett family, the powerhouse behind one of the most heartwarming success stories this year. Sophia, the creative genius behind Luna Studio, credits her family for inspiring her journey. I felt the words like tiny cuts, but I stayed still, composed, patient. Then the host turned to me with a bright smile. Sophia, tell us, how does it feel to have such supportive parents and a brother who believed in you? I smiled, a calm, steady smile. And that's when I decided I wouldn't let them rewrite my story. It feels complicated, I began. My mother's smile faltered slightly, sensing the shift. I'm grateful for the life I've built, I continued. But to be honest, it wasn't because of support. It was despite being forgotten. A hush fell over the studio. The host blinked. Forgotten? I nodded slowly. For 10 years, my family didn't celebrate my birthday. Not once. I spent every one of them alone. Until this year, when they suddenly remembered. After I became successful, Mom's hands clenched in her lap. Sweetheart, that's not... I turned to her gently. Do you remember my 18th birthday, Mom? The night you threw a party for Ethan's new job instead. Her lips parted, but no words came out. Ethan shifted uncomfortably. This isn't the time to... I looked at him. No, it's exactly the time. Because people deserve to know the truth. That success built on loneliness doesn't erase the pain that caused it. The host sat frozen, unsure what to say. The cameras were still rolling. I took a deep breath and looked directly at the lens. I'm not sharing this to shame anyone, I said softly. I'm sharing it because there are people watching who know what it feels like to be the forgotten one, to be ignored by the people who were supposed to love you most. I glanced at my family, their faces pale and stiff. And to those people, I want to say this. Your worth isn't measured by who remembers you. It's measured by how you rise when no one's watching. The audience was silent. Even the host's eyes were glassy. Mom finally whispered, Sophia, why are you doing this? I met her gaze steadily. Because for once, I want the truth to be louder than your lies. When the cameras cut, there was chaos. Producers whispering, my family glaring, Ethan muttering under his breath. Mom tried to reach for my arm. Do you realize what you've done? You embarrassed us on live television. I stood, calm and composed. No, Mom, I told my story. You embarrassed yourselves by pretending to be part of it. She stared at me, speechless. Dad finally muttered, You've changed. I smiled faintly. That's what happens when you grow up without a safety net. You learn to fly, and then I walked away. Past the cameras, the whispers, the flashing lights, free. The next day, social media exploded. Clips from the interview went viral. People flooded the comments with support. Some shared their own stories of neglect and resilience. For once, my name wasn't tied to their approval. It was tied to truth. That night, I sat by the window with a glass of wine, watching the city lights flicker below. And for the first time, my reflection in the glass didn't look haunted by the past. It looked proud, because I had done what they never expected. I turned my pain into power, and I spoke it out loud. The day after the interview, my phone didn't stop buzzing. Notifications, emails, DMs, all from people who finally got it. People who had lived through neglect, silence, and the subtle cruelty of being ignored. They were writing to me, sharing their own stories, thanking me for speaking the truth. For once, I felt heard, truly heard. Meanwhile, my family was in chaos. Mom called frantically. Sophia, please, the article, the interview. It's gone too far. People are talking. Neighbors, our friends. It's embarrassing. I leaned back in my chair, calm as ever. Mom, you may want to see it that way. I see it differently. This isn't about embarrassment. It's about accountability. Ethan texted me later that day. Seriously, Soph, chill. You've gone overboard. Everyone's upset. You don't have to humiliate us. I replied simply. I didn't humiliate anyone. I told the truth. You did that yourselves. Even Dad, who had always been the quiet observer, called to try a different approach. Sophia, maybe we can talk privately. Things don't have to be public like this. I smiled softly, though he couldn't see it. Dad, talking privately never helped before. Public truth works better for everyone now. Social media and the press picked up the story, and suddenly, my family's image was fractured. Friends who once praised them were now whispering about how they'd ignored their own daughter. Business contacts who respected them began distancing themselves. The backlash wasn't just online. Invitations were rescinded. Social gatherings were cancelled. Even some old family friends called me to say, "We always wondered why you were left out. We're sorry we didn't notice sooner." The power shift was intoxicating. But not because I wanted revenge. It was intoxicating because justice finally had a face. And that face was mine. At the same time, Luna Studios' growth skyrocketed. People wanted to work with the woman who not only created stunning designs, but also stood up for herself. International collaborations poured in, and my brand became synonymous with resilience, authenticity, and creativity. Every notification, every email, every new client felt like a tiny victory, a reminder that no one, not even your family, could define your worth. One evening, Mom called again. Her voice was soft, almost pleading. "Sophia, can we please just have a normal conversation? Forget the past for one moment. Can't we just talk as a family?" I took a long sip of wine, thinking back to all those birthdays I'd spent alone, the dinners I'd missed, the silent tears by the window. "Mom," I said finally, calm but firm, "I'm not interested in forgetting. I'm interested in moving forward, without lies. You can be part of my life, but only if you respect the truth. And the truth is, I survived without you, and I thrived without you. That's the life I want." There was a pause. I could almost hear her trying to swallow the reality. "I understand," she said finally. We didn't realize, you didn't care," I said softly. "But that's okay. I learned to care for myself." By the time the week ended, they had largely retreated from public appearances. The neighbors stopped asking about me. The social media chatter faded. And I moved forward. I hired more designers. I launched a new creative campaign. I traveled to client meetings in Paris and New York. I built a team that respected my vision and celebrated each other's talents. And every time my phone buzzed with congratulations or encouragement, I thought back to the little girl in the blue dress, waiting for someone to notice her birthday. She was gone now. In her place stood a woman who had built an empire, alone if she had to. And the best part, I never had to ask for their approval again. The truth had done its work. The forgotten daughter was now the one everyone remembered. And it wasn't because I sought revenge. It was because I had lived my life fully, on my terms. The years had passed, and birthdays became my own personal holiday. No expectations, no disappointments, just celebration. The way I wanted it, the way I deserved it. This year was different. I woke up in my master bedroom, sunlight spilling through the floor-to-ceiling windows of my estate. The lake outside glittered like liquid gold. Birds sang in the gardens I had designed with my own hands. The house was filled with laughter. Not my family's forced, performative laughter, but real, warm, honest joy. Clara and my team had surprised me with a small party in the studio. Balloons, flowers, and a cake decorated in pastel blues and silvers. But the best part, everyone there had chosen to be part of my life. My friends, my colleagues, people who truly cared. I didn't need validation from the people who once ignored me. I sat in the center of it all, smiling as they sang. And for a moment, I let myself remember the little girl in the blue dress, the one who had counted the days on the calendar, hoping someone would notice. I whispered softly, "Look at you now, Sophia. You did it. No one clapped. No one cheered. No one needed to. I felt it in every fiber of my being. Pride, power, and peace." Later, I stepped onto the balcony alone, a glass of champagne in hand, the sun dipping low into the horizon. My phone buzzed with a message from Mom. "Happy birthday, Sophia. We hope you are well," I smiled, typing a simple reply. "Thank you. I'm exactly where I need to be." I put the phone down and took a deep breath of the crisp evening air. This time, I didn't feel any anger. No resentment, only freedom. I had celebrated my birthdays alone once. I had spent years being ignored, unseen and undervalued. But now I was seen, truly seen, not by my family, but by myself, and that, more than anything, was worth celebrating. I raised my glass to the fading sun and whispered, to birthdays remembered, not by others, but by the strength we find within ourselves. The candles on my cake flickered behind me, soft and steady. For the first time, I blew them out with a smile, not because I was wishing for something, but because I had already achieved it all. I had risen, I had thrived, and I had finally, completely, freed myself from the past. The girl who was once ignored had become a woman who could never be forgotten by anyone, and that was the best birthday gift of all. Thanks for watching. If you enjoyed this video, don't forget to like and subscribe for more. See you in the next one. Peace out.